Thank you very much. Good morning, all. I would like to say thank you to the organizers of this event and to Pope Francis for extending the gracious invitation for me to participate. I have submitted a detailed paper to the organizers. I will not be following it, strictly speaking, based on time constraints. And there is a contribution that was made by a fellow judge, the Honorable Mrs. Justice Lisa Palmer Hamilton. She is a former prosecutor who worked in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and she is now a High Court judge and a very valuable resource person. Her paper is also available for the organizers to distribute in the future. What I will do is to focus on three main areas. First of all, what has been Jamaica's experience with human trafficking? Secondly, I would like to look at some of the best practices that we as judicial officers can employ to be very effective in combating this vicious crime. And thirdly, my specialty, the care and protection of children. I work in the Kingston and St. Andrew Family Court, dealing with adult matters, but in a special way, dealing with children and how we care and protect our children. Our first legal enactment regarding trafficking was in 2004, the Child Care and Protection Act. This was followed by the 2007 Trafficking in Persons Act. In the latter statute, we have full provisions regarding this area. And in 2013, there was an amendment to make the legislation even more comprehensive and to increase the penalties which are applicable. Our legislation defines trafficking as recruiting, transporting, transferring, harboring, or receiving persons using threat, force, coercion, abduction, deception or fraud, abuse of power and positions of vulnerability, all for the purpose of sexual exploitation, forced labor or servitude, slavery, organ harvesting. It can be committed by an individual or a corporation, and consent is not possible. So no one can say that the so-called victim consented to this activity. Our statute also provides for restitution from the convicted offender for the victim of trafficking. It also provides for forfeiture of the assets of the convicted offender. And there is victim support, assistance for the victim, protection for the victim, even assistance for them to relocate if they are from an overseas territory. Our statute also provides for in-camera proceedings, especially where the victim is a child or someone who is traumatized, as I suspect all victims are, and even for those persons who have a disability. Since we are virtually a young player in this area of laws and policies and procedures concerning human trafficking, we also have to contend with analysis and assessment. And so each year, the U.S. Department of State and Justice Blackburn-Riggleby, I'm wondering if it is interesting that we're seated beside each other, but every year we are assessed by the U.S. Department of State, and they rate us. So we are currently at Tier 2. We have moved up, and the recommendation is that Jamaica must hold complicit officials accountable, publish a standard victim protection protocol, and that is coming, and publish an annual report monitoring our efforts. Be that as it may, I would like to now focus on a summary of our achievements. So despite being rated as Tier 2, and despite the continued need for more financial, physical, and human resources to fight trafficking in persons, this can be said about Jamaica. First of all, we have specialized main and ancillary legislation on trafficking in persons. We have a multi-agency task force to strengthen our legislative, institutional, and operational capacity to combat trafficking in persons. We have a specialized unit of the police force that deals with trafficking in persons. We have a special prosecutor who handles these cases. We have been involved in investigation and repatriation of trafficking victims from countries such as Burma, Italy, China, Haiti, Cambodia, India, Guyana, Panama, and Colombia. At least 74 victims were rescued. Several persons have been arrested and charged for trafficking. And in 2016, we recorded 4 convictions. And that might seem like a drop in the hat, but we are a very small country, and the persons who are working in this area are very passionate about what they do. There has been research, training, public education, sensitization, awareness building, and prevention measures. We actually have a National Trafficking in Persons Awareness Week, which was instituted, and this features town hall meetings and country tours. Films, documentaries, videos have been released, and we have highlighted the blue heart symbol in honor of trafficking in persons victims. We have a specialized victim services division which provides long-term support and assists with reintegration into society. There have been efforts to strengthen the judicial system to deal with trafficking in persons. And as judges, we have had several training sessions over the years. And interestingly, we are the first Caribbean country to appoint a human trafficking rapporteur. What are the specific best practices, therefore, that we can take away from this summit? We must continue to use international treaties and protocols for guidance in this area. As the Jamaican statute provides for, make victims immune from prosecution. My colleague from the US spoke about coming upon prostitution offenses. So this is where, as judges, we must be very proactive and very visionary and discerning. We might see someone who's charged for prostitution or labor offenses, and when you investigate, this person is actually a victim. Therefore, do not prosecute this person. Treat them as the victim that they indeed present as. We must ensure restitution for the victims and effectively manage your cases. So perhaps you could have a specialized court for tip cases, or the whole court that Judge spoke about. Try to fast track tip cases, especially if the victims are from overseas. What we have noticed in Jamaica is that if the victim is from another territory, they will be very anxious to return home, and they might not want to stay back to take part in this type of case. So we have to make sure that this case becomes a priority, even above, say, a murder case. Use special measures. How can we protect the vulnerable witnesses during the court proceedings? As indicated, our law provides for in-camera matters, but we can also, if necessary, use screens or use technology to facilitate video-linked testimony from remote locations. So judges must be sensitive, flexible, watch the victim's body language. Many of these victims are fearful. They're fearful for their lives, for their physical safety. And what we have noticed is that even if they are from overseas, the offender invariably knows their background and knows about their family situation. So we have to remind ourselves that these victims are sometimes stigmatized and ostracized, and they need special protection. I will now look at the care and protection of child victims of trafficking. We have in our law the Child Care and Protection Act of 2004. It provides for such children to be seen in a special way by the court if they are the victim or the complainant in respect of certain offenses. And the final orders that the court can make in these matters is for this child to be institutionalized, but this is a last resort. Otherwise, we try to find another extended family member, perhaps, who can take care of this child if it is necessary, or we put the child back home and have some type of supervision and follow-up. What we have observed in regards to child victims, they are exposed mainly to sexual exploitation, as against child victims coming into court in respect of forced labor, domestic servitude, or organ harvesting. But we find that these children are exposed to physical danger or injury. There's psychological scarring, loss of self-esteem and values, resultant promiscuity and engagement in risky behavior is possible, secondary victimization, interruption of their education, separation from their family or next of kin, relocation to state or other facilities might be might have to happen, and this goes to another geographical location from where the child was originally born and grown, and therefore it might lead to loss of identity confusion due to misplacement. There's disruption of childhood, premature launch into adult lifestyle, role, or activities. So what do we do? What is the response of the court? These are some of the interventions that we have embarked upon. Psychological support is provided, specialized therapeutic intervention, educational support to ensure re-enrollment, family counseling, medical assessment and treatment. Some of these children prevent with sexually transmitted infections. Some of them become pregnant. The social workers have to intervene to assist with re-socialization. And I'm happy to say that at my court, which I call a problem-solving court, we have a social work department where there are specialized social workers who deal with family matters, whether individually or in a group counseling session. The Jamaica Association of Women Judges, we are a newly formed association. We were formed this year. Going forward, and even before I received word of a certain proposal that might materialize, yes or no, we had decided that we needed to formalize trafficking in persons as another project of the Jamaica Association of Women Judges. Right now we have two main projects. We are looking at women and girls in detention, and also we are supporting the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation, which seeks to continue the education of pregnant girls. So these are teen mothers who are allowed to go back to school to continue their education. However, as I said before, trafficking in persons will become yet another project of our association. We will work with and support the Jamaican National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons. We will collaborate with and participate in local, regional, and international efforts to build capacity through training and sensitization. And I state in closing that Jamaica stands ready to collaborate with the countries represented at this summit in the continued fight against human trafficking, modern slavery, and organized crime. I thank you.